Hello, podcast listeners. Pull out your Laserdisc player, get ready to eat some chicken wings, and let's talk about some Super Bowl stuff. This episode of JJ Meets World is all over the board, and if you listen to it before the Super Bowl, it's going to be a little more enjoyable. Sit back, relax, and consume this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Today I was at a Hotdish festival, Tucker. Like the Fargo Hotdish Festival, the official Hotdish Festival.
Were you there in an official capacity?
I sure was. I've judged this competition. I was one of the first year judges. And then they said, listen, would you mind being our MC? And I said, I would love that, because then I can talk to other people and I don't have to feel, you know, there's a lot of pressure that goes into judging one of these things, because I'm friends with so many of the fine folks who run these restaurants, right?
Uh-huh.
So I prefer the MC job, and then I can make jokes. Like today I started a chant that was casserole, heck no, casserole, heck no. So I do the little things that make it worthwhile. But I judged with 2 other JJ Meets World guests.
Really?
And the third one that we should absolutely get on at some point. So I judged with Charlie Johnson, the president and CEO of the Visitor and Conventions Bureau, and then John Lamb from the Fargo Forum. The other person we should get on there, by the way, I'm just putting this out there into the world, Tom Knowlton, who is the husband of a former line bender, Corey Calvert at the time, Corey Knowlton now, and also the head brewer at Drecker.
Okay.
So the dude's been brewing beer since they first moved into that initial space and has really grown with it. I had a absolute blast. I mean, this is the 5th year in a row that I have had the pleasure of doing this. In fact, I'm just right now looking at social media, and Tucker, if you were to hop onto Facebook and you would go to 701 Eateries Facebook page, it's just 701 is the name of their page, and you'll see it's kind of an interesting font for it. But they posted a picture. They were the UFDA grand champions today, and you can see me fiddling with a microphone directly behind them. It's a very embarrassing photo where I'm not in focus.
There you are.
Yep.
Nice. You know, JJ, one of my favorite things about horse races is that the horses all have really fun names. So in something like the Hotdish Festival, where people's hot dishes are competing head to head in extreme hot dish combat with other hot dishes, are people coming up with like really interesting names? Like a couple of the names that I've seen on horses before was like Dr. Something Special was a great name, you know, or like Lucky's Strikes or something like that, you know, or Luis's Fortune or something like that. What kind of names on hot dishes are we getting?
One of them today was Oink Cluck Moo, and it was a hot dish that had, you guessed it, beef, pork, and chicken in it. Okay. Gosh, I mean, there were some interesting names. I don't think people got to the point of being like, oh, this is exactly what I'm envisioning, because I have a real feeling that a lot of these places made up the recipe yesterday. And they're like, oh, damn it. It's the Hotdish Festival. Shit. And they're like, okay, so let's invent it. Now, I've mentioned this when I've talked about judging barbecue before, which is if you make a middle of the road barbecue and a middle of the road chicken and a middle of the road brisket, you can actually win barbecue competitions.
Mm.
Sometimes if you do, like you might win ribs and be the top rib maker, but if your chicken's lower and, it doesn't even out. But if you're even across the board, middle of the road, maybe a little above middle, you stand a good chance of winning. And no one today did what I would consider a traditional hot dish.
Okay.
So there was no one, who did, hey, listen, here's some ground beef mixed with cream of mushroom soup. Maybe there's some green beans, French style cut in there, and then a couple tater tots on the top. And I think that there is a room, there's a room in the world for a hot dish that can be a little finer in quality, that is not that doesn't stray too far from what the original point of it being, which is, this is a hot dish. So this is for the future. That's my thought, is like, hey, it's the assignment is to make a hot dish. So for example, Blackbird made their version of a hot dish, which was really a pasta dish. It was like penne and then pizza toppings, like a red sauce, and then they topped it with this pesto oil, and it was delicious. It was really good. But if you put that in front of me and you were like, JJ, what is this? I would not say that it is a hot dish. I'd be like, oh, look, a fun pasta in sampler. That's what I would say.
How many awards are given out at this hot dish festival?
There are 4 awards given out, and they are in this order. It is the booth award. So you're encouraged to decorate your booth for your restaurant in what represents what you're selling. So for example, the folks from Piggy Barbecue in West Fargo brought a lot of barbecue sauces, right? Said like, listen, we're not going to tell you how to hot dish. And they put a little pulled pork on theirs, and so you could put a barbecue sauce on it. The folks from Marge's Diner had macrame, and they really leaned into this idea that you're eating at your grandma's place in 1975. The booth that won, I should have saved my sheet and I could tell you the actual. The booth that won, I believe was No, not Pounds. The booth that won, it was Blackbird, because Blackbird had done, it was like a Norse inspired. So they had Viking helmets and they had a giant shield, and one of them was dressed in sort of this giant fur, like white fur coat.
So even though that the hot dish is what's being judged, you're really judging the pageantry.
For one of them. Yeah, correct. For one of the categories.
See, so now, you have the Oscars, but then you need to have the Razzies. And I really think that they should consider adding just a last place award, like the worst in show, like one group that's going to get highlighted. Like, hey guys, you need to fucking up your game next year. Yeah. And I'd call it the Cold Bowl.
So I that's an excellent name for it. I would say there is a non-formal version of that, and it's the walk of shame of carrying like 4 giant pans of your hot dish back out to your car because no one came back for seconds. And I'll be honest, there were a couple teams that did that. There have been teams from restaurants that I love who just do not understand what the assignment is before.
Yeah. The shame of uneaten hot dish.
Right. And there's a year where there was a place and they used basmati rice as their base. And it was like, listen, I love basmati rice. I enjoy it. It's delicious, but it does not belong in this small cup and with ground beef on top of it. That just does not sync. The next award is the most creative. Now that's most creative, not for the booth, but for the hot dish itself. And that went to that went to Pounds. And Pounds had done this interesting thing where they used a lot of sweet potato, and then they had like homemade marshmallow that you could put on the top of it, and they served it piping hot so the marshmallow would melt a little bit. And it was delightful, horribly well done. I mean, just absolutely sticky. And if you had a beard, you were going to rip some of your hair out. but damn it, it was tasty. The People's Choice, which is voted on by all of the folks who attended and filled out a ballot that's in the back of their program. The People's Choice went to Marge's Diner, which is a brand new downtown Fargo diner themed along the lines, like I had said earlier, of like if you had gone to your grandma's house in 1975. Here is what set Marge's Diner aside from everyone else today, and maybe why it got the People's Choice. They did like an egg bake hot dish. So it grabs me for two reasons. Number one, have you seen the price of eggs lately? Holy crap. Like they put so much in this that if they had walked away, the restaurant may have shuttered forever because they put so much into it. Number two, they knew the audience they were trying to hit. This is a Sunday, like this thing opens at 1:00 on Sundays. People are looking for brunch. They're used to eating brunch. And so they knocked it out of the park by doing that. That was a great idea. The overall best of went to 701, which is the restaurant that used to be Rosie's Laundromat, and just north. I would consider it just north of the downtown Fargo area. And they had, I mean, theirs was very good. It was very, very good. And what I think people like the most about it is there wasn't anything so incredibly off-putting about it, right? So like there were some teams that put a sauce on it that the sauce was intensely flavorful, but if you didn't like the flavor of cumin, if you didn't like the flavor of like a sweetness on a savory, you're going to turn off those people. But this was, you know, this was as close to what I was describing as like a middle of the road type hot dish as you could get.
Sure.
So
now,
it was
how do you think you would fare if you entered this competition?
I could win it right off the bat.
Really?
Yeah, I'm that bold in saying that. So, and I'll tell you two reasons why. Number one, when you make a hot dish, everything's got to be ready at the same time, right? So you are talking about something that you bake and put in the oven, and it all comes out, and you can serve it, whether it's time to eat or not, you can dish that onto a plate and you can be good to go. I am the master of timing things out together. Now, the problem that most people would have with their hot dish is, well, I'm just going to combine all of these ingredients inside of the pan and I'm good to go. I say, nay, no. What you do is you make your base. So whatever your hot dish slurry would be, whether that be ground beef with cream of mushroom soup or whatever that main part's going to be. And then you are going to take whatever potato you use. And my potato would be curly fries. I would take curly fries rather than tater tots as my topper, and I would put curly fries on top, but I would make sure that those are extra crispy. So I would have to fry up these things in like a deep fryer or an air fryer so that when I pop them on top, they are crispy and crunchy versus the sogginess you get when you bake tater tots right directly in your hot dish.
Got it. Okay.
So I think that I would say, I mean, I've eaten enough of these over the last 5 years that I kind of feel like I've got a heads up. So,
well, I'm wondering if maybe next year you should enter on behalf of KFGO, like representing the cookbook. Like I'm doing my recipe on behalf or whatever, and just see how far in you could get.
I mean, I'd not be able to MC it anymore. And that's
the real prize is the career boost.
Yeah, it's not even a career boost. It's just an honor.
Have you done in your lifetime so far a ribbon cutting where you cut the ribbon?
No.
I feel like that's going to happen for you at some point.
Yeah, I'd like, the downside is most of the time the people who cut the ribbon are the ones who are opening that new business. Or a politician. And I think that my political days are over, Tucker. I don't think that there's a world where I end up holding any kind of an office from here on out, because it'd just be too difficult with my media career, because I'd have to take a sabbatical from that.
I think what it is the people of the town decide to honor you with a statue. And so at the unveiling, they want a ribbon to be cut that then undoes the the drop cloth covering the statue. So it's in honor of you, and so you'd be the guest of honor. And as
Describe
the
how
guest
those
of
mechanics work.
what's that?
Describe how those mechanics work, because usually it's a giant sheet that's covering the statue. So describe how me cutting something would lower the sheet.
Because it would be okay. So imagine the top of the sheet, right, where it's connected to a rope. Okay, we're going to start from there. Okay, and the rope goes up to a little like a pulley, right, and then goes down and goes all the way down to the ground, which then loops through like a circular stake, and then up towards a tripod, which is connected to the ribbon. And so when you cut the ribbon, it releases all the tension, and the thing that's holding up the cloth is no longer holding up the cloth, and the cloth just drops.
So I'm going to play Carol, who's in charge of ribbon cuttings for the Chamber of Commerce. Okay. That seems needlessly complicated. We usually just have them pull the sheet off. Now, if you were interested in something, let's say where JJ threw a sausage and we tied the sheet to a leash that was connected to a dog, and the dog pulled it off, I've been wanting to try that for a long time.
But the difference being, though, is that it's not just that the statue is being unveiled, but it's being unveiled in the opening of the JJ Gordon Memorial Park.
Well, then I can't be there. You can't have a memorial park and me still be alive.
No, you're on your way out, so you're in like a wheelchair.
So okay,
so
are they going to kill me once this is done?
They're like, let's do this now so he can enjoy it, because if he's not here for it, that kind of, wouldn't that be great to have as like one of your final memories before we just put you in the hospital room?
Somebody just put some cardboard over the word memorial, and then when he dies later this afternoon, we'll just take the cardboard off.
Yeah, and what happens like 100 years in the future is KFC comes through and buys the land and just turns that statue into the Colonel.
Oh, now see, that would be the honor.
They just add
being turned into a Colonel Sanders statue. Hey, do you know how difficult it is to get something bronzed in this day and age?
I've never looked into it. No. So
my wife and I are going to be celebrating Valentine's Day this year, as we do. You celebrate Valentine's Day with your wife, and not that we're people who are like, we've got to celebrate Valentine's Day, but we figure like, this is part of the whatnot of being together, and people are gonna be like, what do you do for Valentine's Day? You guys got plans for Valentine's Day? So I wanted to get one of the dried flowers from her wedding bouquet bronzed, so it lasts forever.
Oh, okay.
Or at least as long until our children or grandchildren throw it away, because they're like, this is a cumbersome piece of knickknackery that we just do not have any affiliation with.
Why did Mima hold on to this paperweight for so long?
Right, be like, this is ugly. So I called a couple places and they said, yeah, we don't, bronzing used to be really big, but we just don't do it anymore. There's not enough demand to get baby booties bronzed and these other things that you could dip into liquid hot bronze and have it come out and dry. So I found a place online and they said, yeah, shipping a flower to us it's too delicate.
Yeah.
And so I'm now sitting in a situation where I'm considering buying a home bronzing kit. And you gotta be careful, because if you search for home bronzing kit, most of the stuff you're going to find is about tanning.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not talking about turning cowhide into leather tanning.
Wait a minute.
I'm talking about skin coloration tanning.
Hold on. So you're buying a fucking like crucible to melt bronze?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably not going to work. It's probably going to burn up the flower.
So here's the thing. You're supposed to be able to do this. So what you do is you put like a petroleum jelly on the outside of the flour, and it cools the bronze as it sets, because it's not like pouring like aluminum, which retains its heat for a long time. That's the thing, is bronze has a very, very low melt point. Which is why it's been used so many years. It's why you can take bronze and like as it's like cooling, you can still shape it by hand. It's why it was so popular for statues for a long time. So I did a lot of research into this thing, and I think I've figured out what I need to figure out.
What if you got it cast into acrylic instead?
Damn it, Tucker. Why didn't you talk to me about this weeks ago? Why didn't you anticipate my needs?
Isn't that a much better idea? Because then you can see it and it's not going to get set on fire. And then you could put it in something.
Damn it. That's a good idea. That's
you could
a
even
really good
backlight
idea.
that shit with some LEDs, son.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that like much work. I just want something that I can just hand over and be done with it.
But the thing is, I actually have no idea what the logistics of getting it cast in acrylic would be. I mean, that could be potentially way more expensive. I have no idea.
No, that's super easy. That's really, really easy.
Is it?
Yeah. So for a while, Jill was going to start making jewelry out of that, and she never got around to it. So like I messed around with it for a little bit, and like it was much easier than I thought it was going to be.
How many of the things do you think are surrounding you right now that are in the haven't gotten around to that yet category?
Well, I'm looking at probably $1,500 in Lego sets. Easy.
Wow.
Easy.
Damn.
That I have not put together. But Legos are kind of like, do I want to put this together or not? I'm looking at my Plex setup that I've never gotten around to doing so I can stream. There's probably a bunch of stuff. But, I'll say this. I was thinking the other day that if I took a vacation that was 5 days off from work. So I started a vacation on a Friday afternoon and didn't go to work for another, 7, 9, 10 days. I do not think I'd get done everything that I need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people do it. I'm going to be great at being retired, probably. And then it's also like the best of intentions, right? I've gotten really good at not adding additional projects in my life to things I know I'm never going to get around to. So, recently I was talking to someone and I asked what the name of their business was, and they said Pepper Pants. And I said, excuse me? And they said Pepper Pants. And I said one more time, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it right. And they go, Pepper Pants. And I was like, okay, gotcha. And then I didn't ask them anything else as like a lead up. And I feel bad that I didn't inquire more about what Pepper Pants was. And it has nothing to do with pants at all. The thing that we were talking about.
You've looked into it?
No. Like what we were talking, like the reason I'm interacting with this business has nothing to do with pants or pepper of any kind. And so I'm kind of curious. I'm like, are you teaming up with someone else to do something? Or did you just have the worst possible name for your business? Because at first I thought they were talking about Pepper Pots, and I thought that was a joke. And then the second time they said Pepper Pants, and I was like, Pepper Ants? Like thinking, are you like, do you have something to do with extermination? And then when they got nasty with that Pepper Pants, and I go, okay. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm the asshole in this situation. My apologies.
It's like the rural juror.
It is like the rural juror. Tucker, have you ever known anyone who has a mounted like skull, or like it's like a deer head with antlers? Have you ever lived in a place that has one of those, or worked at a place that has one of those?
At first I thought you meant like a human skull.
I mean, maybe
I'm trying to have I worked in a place? No, I haven't worked in a place that I can think of. I think in school at some point I may have had a science teacher that probably would have had something up on the wall of taxidermy. I have uncles who would potentially have something up like that, but no, I've never worked at a place with that. I don't imagine you would have. We're not counting We Fest, right?
Yeah, no. Ugh. I had a friend growing up whose dad, I wouldn't call him an avid hunter, but he must have been, and he had a couple buck heads that he had mounted, and they were in the basement. And the only thing I ever they freaked me out, right? I do not like looking at them. The eyes are weird, and the friggin' the fact that like you were once alive, like I can't imagine doing that with any other creature on the planet. But the thing that really got me the most was they had to vacuum it because it collects dust just like anything else does.
Yep.
And I think when they vacuumed it, part of like they're maybe getting a little too aggressive because the skin peeled away a little bit. And so then they had to glue it back. But you always knew that there had been some weird kind of crap that had taken place with that friggin' head.
Yeah, I don't understand that impulse of, man, I want to kill that thing and then take its head and put it on my wall so I can look at it all the time.
Right. Gross. Gross. And I think that like the point of pride that people have in it to show it off. I mean, maybe it's the same as I've got like with Legos, but it just seems bizarre. But I don't know. I digress. I had an actual purpose.
Have you ever seen anyone actually clean a deer?
Yeah. And we had neighbors who also did they hung the deer in the garage.
Yeah.
And I've seen a deer field dressed, and I've seen one where they hollow it out to bring it in to get processed.
My fifth grade teacher once brought in, he'd always bring in like a deer heart every year because he'd go hunting. So he'd bring in a deer heart and dissect it in front of the class. And I just I could not look at it. I'm not built for that kind of thing.
And, I don't think that it's a weakness for us, Tucker, that we can't stomach something like that. To me, I do not care for the look of it. I do not care for the smell that you get in a situation like that. Even though I love eating meat, I can touch ground beef like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the second you start dissecting one of the actual organs, I'm checking out.
Yeah, I really need that sort of modern day, completely divorced from what part of the food chain this came from and how it was made. I'm just so not fit for previous generations of life.
I forgot to mention this, but I should go back because it's in my notes for today's episode. I did want to gloat about what I did get my wife for Valentine's Day.
Let's hear it.
So when I say the name Danny Trejo, do you know who I'm referring to?
Yeah, the actor.
Yeah, the actor. He was in the movie Machete, as well as like a million other movies. So she's always enjoyed Danny Trejo, and I got her a cameo a few years ago, which is where you can get celebrities to read a script that you write, and they take it with their cell phone. And so a lot of times it's like, hey, Jill, Merry Christmas from your husband, JJ. And he wants you to know that he you cut through him like a machete. And so I got her this one. And then I also found out he owns a restaurant in Los Angeles, but not just any kind of restaurant. It's just a taco stand. And it's called Trejo's Tacos.
Ooh.
And I've read some amazing reviews of them, right? Like just amazing reviews from people who said, listen, I go here not because I like Danny Trejo and I want to support his acting career by going to his restaurant, but these are legit tacos. So this year I got her the official Danny Trejo cookbook from Trejo's Tacos, signed by Machete himself, Danny Trejo. And then I got her a collection of baklava from Harry and David because she's really into baklava right now.
Mm.
Are you a baklava person at all, Tucker?
I mean, I think I've had it before. I'm actually trying to picture it right now.
It's a layered dessert. So like if you think of a lasagna, it is like the lasagna of desserts, but these layers are super thin and flaky. And then there's, things in between that might be nuts, spices, honey, things like that.
I bet I have, and it sounds delicious. I love dessert. It's hard to not love dessert. How well do you think the gifts that she got you is going to stack up against what you got her?
Now, interesting question, because I got her, I ordered all of this stuff prior to Christmas because I had already done some shopping and I had made a list of things that I could get for Jill for Christmas. And these did not make the Christmas list. So I just pushed them over to the Valentine's Day list. And the reason I say it's interesting you asked is these are such knock out of the park home runs that I have been telling her how well I did in the Valentine's Day gift. So as she doesn't show up and look like a fool by having a less than gift.
God, I'm trying to think what she should have gotten you then. What do you get for the man who has everything?
Well, there's a lot of stuff. So I've recently started collecting laser discs.
Dude, I just bought my first laser disc.
Well, what did you get?
It was Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins.
Yep.
It's the first time I've seen a laser disc in town here. And I was like, $10. Don't mind if I do. Why not? So I don't even have a player, but I have my first laser disc. What have you been picking up?
Oh, this is going to surprise you. I have Captain Ron on Laserdisc.
Yes. Awesome. Yep.
I've got the widescreen version of Jurassic Park. I've got Back to the Future 1 and 2, but not 3. And what I've got. Oh, and then Muppets Take Manhattan.
Oh, solid, very solid library. Now, are you trying to watch these?
Nope. In fact, I do not have a player, but I've been told that one of the area colleges coming up here this spring is planning on liquidating a ton of stuff from their media departments.
No shit.
Yeah. And the only reason that this even came up in conversation was I talked about going over there, and that's where I bought the iMac that I'm using right now. I bought 2 iMacs it was insane. It was like $75 a piece.
Nice.
And, the college goes in and wipes out the hard drives and makes sure that they work. And it came with a mouse and a keyboard. And I was like, for $75, it doesn't matter to me that this thing is 8 years old. It still functions just fine. And it runs all of my Adobe suite. It's not my main computer. If I need to do some actual heavy computing, I'm not going to play video games on it, but I can watch video on it. I bought one of them for that Plex library that I keep talking about setting up. But so I was talking about, I want to know when they're going to do these. And they said, during COVID, we started inventorying, because you needed something to do, all of this stuff. And we realized there's all of these things that we've been storing that we just don't use anymore. And he said it started with a teacher saying, what's the point of even having a VCR DVD player in the classroom anymore?
Uh-huh.
Anything that we want or use is now is all streamed.
Right.
And they said even the companies who made these things have a catalog online. So even if it's something that you use that is, let's say, from 1995, that company has already seen the writing on the wall and digitized their content so that it's streamable online for classroom use, because they certainly weren't producing new VHS cassettes of it, and let alone producing new DVDs is also, what are you going to do? And no one's scaling up to 4K in the stuff that they're going to do.
No.
And so I was like, really? Tell me more. And they're like, yeah, and they dug deep down into the bowels to, look at this. They said, so they're going to have this open house at some point in the spring, and it's first come, first served. Okay. And you'll wait in line and they'll let 5 people into this room at a time, just the same way they did the computer sale. And they'll only accept cash, and you can't test it before you leave, but they've tested it in advance to give you an idea. They'll put it, say okay, listen, this laser disc player, we put a laser disc in, and it, the menu popped up on the screen, And so
Yeah, I
that'll
know.
be the most that they do with it. One of the things I want to do is I want to test these laser discs because of laser rot
Yeah.
and see if these are actual playable. They all had notes that said tested, works fine, watched the whole way through. And so I'm like, okay, well that's great. But there are some special features of things like the Muppets, the Great Muppet Caper has some special features that were only released on the Laserdisc that came in that you could get in Great Britain. And I've seen a couple people who've put some stuff online, but then it gets pulled off right away. Which, by the
Right.
way, one of the things I've wanted to do for a very long time is to invest probably like $400 into printing out the run through that Nintendo Power used to put into their issues. So it's like a fold out of what a whole level, a side scrolling level would look
Oh,
like
yeah,
in
totally.
Super Mario Brothers for the SNES or something like that, right?
I miss that era of gaming so much, of gaming magazines, because I
God.
had a subscription to Sega Visions for a while. I would just look at that for hours.
So I had been planning on this because there was a Reddit that I was on that said, oh, hey, listen, here's someone went through and scanned every issue of Nintendo Power. And I was like, you, sir or madam, are a hero. And it's all gotten pulled. Like in the last 2 months, somebody pulled all of this stuff. So I don't know if they got a cease and desist or what, but pulled all this stuff. And one of the things that I used to love about Nintendo Power was they had a comic book series that was inside there that told the adventures of like Link in A Link to the Past. And even though I know the plot of the game, it was still fun to watch, you know, this play out month after month after month. But so I wanted to print out a ton of those and put them on my wall. I've got a small wall in my office where I could literally like wallpaper these things. And so you'd walk up and you could spend an hour just looking at the run through of Mega Man X or of Ninja Gaiden. And now I'm going to have to really dig deep to find these things. And after these got pulled, the price of Nintendo Powers on eBay quadrupled. So like I'm looking at a Nintendo Power issue that I've got right now that has from DuckTales on SNES or on NES, Nintendo. And that one I remember buying for like $2.99 when when Paradox was having a sale. And now I think it was like $42 to buy it on eBay. So I feel like
right now
this is something where we need a hero who doesn't wear a cape to step forward and figure out a way to put all the Nintendo Powers back on the internet, because Nintendo was already, this is not something Nintendo should be holding close to the chest in this era, right? Because they already made money off of it. They're on systems that are far, far, far more advanced, but allowing us to relive a little bit of that nostalgia and hype would be awesome. It would be fantastic for us to get that kind of thing. And as we get into a world where people live with nostalgia and want it, I don't know why they wouldn't make more and more of this stuff available to us. It just seems like a no-brainer that you could get me interested in some of these things that I loved when I was a kid and let me enjoy them going forward. But teach his own.
A lot of these issues go for just about $20.
Like in good shape?
Yeah, like in decent shape. The thing is that there's no set price, so you have to really dig, and you'll eventually find someone you'll get a sense of, okay, everyone's listing it at this amount, but that doesn't mean it's actually selling at that amount, because most people now really use eBay as like a storefront versus putting up auctions, because they don't want to have to keep relisting things and have to continue to pay that relisting price. So most of the listings you'll see now, they're all buy it now settings. And it kind of gives you a sense of what people think they're going to get for it, but it's hard to actually find out really what it's going for, because you don't really get to see that. You don't get to see, in the same way you see people bidding on something. At least with bidding, you can go, it's gotten up to $100. Someone out there was willing to go to $100 to secure that particular issue. But mostly of what I'm just seeing right now, I haven't seen a single one with a bid on it yet, is that they're all buy it now listings, and people are assuming that someone's going to pay a lot for it. So what this kind of tells me is that I wouldn't be surprised if these prices actually go back down within the next couple of years on some level, because I know a lot of this shit got out of hand during the pandemic, where suddenly like vintage video games and trading cards and stuff were selling for like 5x, 6x their value. I think people were just getting like money from, government or whatever, and they were doing nothing else. And so they were kind of going on a spending binge. And so there was a lot of that going on. So, however, some of the first issues, like this Nintendo Power #1, that one from 1989, I think ones like that, especially in really good condition, those are really going to be worth something over time.
bucks.
Yeah, I think so. I really do think so.
Hey,
but you keep looking at thrift stores. I'll keep an eye out for you, buddy.
Good. Speaking of thrift stores, you recently sold a massive amount of VHS tapes, several boxes worth.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed one of the things that you got rid of was a VHS copy of Labyrinth, and you didn't even think of your friend?
I didn't know that you wanted a VHS of Labyrinth, JJ.
Jim Henson mega fan?
You've never expressed that to me, but now that I know it, I'll look out for another one because I see him all the time.
Would you like to know so since you started me on this, would you like to know the VHSs that I have in my collection that bring me joy in my office?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read them out. I'll read them out to you.
Also, if you have anything you're looking for, you should let me know.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's some. Okay, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'd like all 3 Indiana Jones films, but those are the ones. The Nutty Professor, Cool Runnings, Galaxy Quest, Only the Lonely, which is a John Candy movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which you did give me, Uncle Buck, The Muppet Christmas Carol, The Dark Crystal, and then Gremlins. I saved Gremlins from the Christmas bin and made sure that I held on to it.
You know what? Would you like a copy of Emmett Otter's Jug Band?
Yes.
I've got that for you, bud. You can have that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I've really winnowed down my tastes, so I kind of know what I want and don't want. But it was nice to like get rid of all those tapes, because what often happens is someone gives me a huge box of their tapes, and I only want 3 of the tapes, and then I just got all this extra shit. And so it gets to a critical mass, and I sell it. But however, I'm tracking this year all of the things that I collect, that I buy and sell, so that at the end of the year, I can kind of go, okay, this year on average, I paid this much for a VHS tape. I paid on average this much for a comic book, right? Or whatever. And it's kind of fun to track it. And I can go, I got the most good stuff at this location or whatever. Well, I just started tracking at the beginning of the year. And these things that I just sold, that's close to 500 tapes. Those are from like last year. So because I sold them for like $80, it totally has thrown my average for the year out of whack. And so technically right now I'm down for the year 198 tapes, and it's cost me $76 to do that. That's just because I had such a massive influx out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do enjoy following you on this journe. By the way,
I guess that's the wrong thing to say. Influx out doesn't make any sense, does it? That's a complete contradiction.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Tucker, at the time of this recording, we are a week away from the Super Bowl, and I've got
that's football, right?
But it's ironic because there's really more handling by the hands of football than there is by the feet.
Right, because
is why the rest of the world calls soccer football.
And that's the one where you don't want to get CTE.
What is CTE?
That's the thing where they hit their heads too hard.
Concussions?
Too often. But it's like getting consistent concussions every single day for years and years and years. Oh. And then it makes you, I don't know, it just makes you unhealthy.
I designed a version of football where the contest is actually about a month long, and you start with both teams. And rather than a coin toss to see who's going to win, you let a greased pig go in the stadium, and whichever team captures the pig first, and like all the doors are open, so you might have to run onto the concourse. This pig might end up in the seats. Like you're all over the place. Once they grab this pig, that team gets control of the ball, but they also have to tan the hide and make the pig skin So then they're the host team. And then you play a regular game of football, but during halftime, one lucky fan is invited to come down and eat the baby back ribs.
So they, to have the game ball, must slaughter a pig.
Yes, a greased pig. But there will be some prayers, and the pig's family will be well taken care of.
There will be some prayers.
Yeah, and there will be
that'll do something.
No part of the pig will be wasted. Which, by the way, so we have the new Asian American market in Fargo, right? Which is an awesome, like, it's a full size grocery store. You can get so much stuff that you don't normally find in a grocery store. It's awesome. But the one thing where I was like, this is maybe a little too much, is you can get a large order of pig uteruses.
No.
Uteri. And
Why?
I was like, what are you? And I wanted to be like, what have I been eating that has pig uterus in it?
I want to know who reads that and goes, "Oh, finally,
it's about time."
Okay, I've been out for so long.
Now are pulling me back in. So the first thing I want to talk about leading into the Super Bowl is this. I have an amazing recipe for root beer chicken wings and a pro tip for people right now. So I'm going to walk you through this recipe. It's step by step, pretty easy.
I believe you've talked about it before, and I've been here. I wanted to hear about it for a while, and it definitely has to be root beer. It can't be like a cola or like a Dr. Pepper.
So you could use Dr. Pepper. The only thing is, so there's a citrus element to this that I don't know would complement a cola.
Okay.
Maybe Dr. Pepper, you could get away with it. But I don't think it would go well with a cola. And so It goes really well with a root beer for the reason why like a cream soda could be popular.
Sure.
So you're going to get yourself a bag of frozen or fresh chicken wings. I usually use the one from Costco. So this recipe is good for about 50 chicken wings. Let those babies thaw in the fridge. Do not just put them in a pan and put water in the pan and let them soak and sit in that for a while. You want to let them thaw the way they're supposed to thaw, and don't thaw them on the counter either. Food safety prep, do them in the refrigerator. So you got to know a couple days. Now this recipe involves using a grill. I will go back at the very end of this and amend it to a stovetop and oven for those people who are not preparing food outside. So you're going to want to heat up a grill and grab a cast iron pan or a pan that's safe to put on the grill. You're going to put the pan on it so that one side is the hot rack, that's just the grill, and the other side is warming up the pan. Combine these ingredients, and you're going to want to keep it in the fridge for an hour. 1.5 cups of ketchup, 1 20-ounce bottle of root beer. I suggest Barks because it has bite. 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Half a teaspoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. You can go more if you're like me and like garlic. You're going to cut a lemon in half and hand juice it over this. Okay. And you just really, you're not trying to get as much juice as you can out of this thing, but you can get the juice, you can get a little bit of the pulp in there, and then set aside the rest of the lemon. Then you're going to want to take your thawed wings and make this marinade and let them sit in the marinade for an hour. 1/4 cup of olive oil, half an orange, hand juiced, and then if you want to get crazy, zest some of that orange peel as well. 1 tablespoon of ginger, zested. I haven't used dried ginger for this, but I have used the ginger paste that you can get in the produce area, and that works out just fine. 1 tablespoon of fine salt. This is important. When you're marinating something, the salt is the brine part of it. So you're doing a quick brine on these wings. 1 tablespoon finely ground black pepper. Important that you do the finely ground and not coarse ground because you want it to incorporate into it. And then 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So you've got these things marinating. Let's go to the grill. You're going to spray some nonstick compound on the area where you're going to sear the wings. So not in your cast iron pan, on the grate next to it. Then you're going to take your wings and then you're going to not wash them out of the marinade. So you're going to take them from your marinade bowl and put them right on those hot sears. And you're going to heat them for about 3 minutes per side. And while the wings are cooking, you're going to take your root beer mixture and pour it into the cast iron skillet, which should be really piping hot at this point. And by the time like those wings are done searing, 3 minutes on each side, it should be bubbling a bit when the wings are ready. So you're going to want to keep stirring that though. There's a lot of sugars in there that can burn.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep a hand like while you're searing those wings and be mixing that thing about. So then you're going to take the wings out and you're going to add them to the root beer mixture bath. Mix them around while they cook. Simmer those beauties for 12 minutes. And while you're waiting, clean the grates on the opposite side of the grill so that they're ready for the big finish. Then, once these things are bubbling and boiling in there and all this goodness has worked its way into the delicious skin and the fat and the meat, you are going to take the wings out one by one, not pour them out, take them out one by one, put them back on the grate for about a minute on each side, and you are going to essentially caramelize the sugars in that root beer bath and get it so that they're kind of sticky on the outside. If you like them crispier, you can leave it on there a little longer so that they're crispy, but I think that the stickiness of them is better. It gives more flavor. It reminds me a little bit of barbecue chicken. So when you serve these, pile them all up onto a plate, and then I suggest a sweet barbecue sauce for dipping. So a honey barbecue, a barbecue sauce that's got a molasses base to it. And you can also dip these into like a ranch, but I'm telling you, a sweet barbecue sauce is going to do even better. And you don't want to pour the barbecue sauce over the wings. You want to use it for dipping. Myself personally, I never have to dip these things. They are just out of this world really good. If you are someone who likes a little bit of heat, red pepper flakes in that marinade would also add a really nice kick to these wings. But of course, you don't want to ostracize all your guests when you do that. So that's JJ's root beer chicken wings deal. And I'm telling you, I have never once had a complaint on these. I have served them dozens of times and they are a hit every single time.
Yeah, I've never had them, but they sound unbelievable.
They're so good. In fact, they're so good. I included them in my newspaper column this week. How's
that going?
It's going really well. I share the duties with my radio partner, Amy Eiler. So she does one and I do one, and she does one and I do one. And we've got some good feedback from it already. And I think we'll continue doing it. The woman who did it previously had been doing it for like 25 years before she passed away. Okay. And so we knew we had big shoes to fill. And so this is possibly something I'll be doing for the next quarter of a century.
So then what's the process then? Is it when it's your turn, is it really just, hey, this is the recipe I wish to divulge?
Yes.
And then do you already then have kind of in your back pocket, I'm pretty sure I know what my next 4 to 6 columns are going to be? Or do you let yourself go, what am I hungry for? And you make that one?
It's a good question. So, for example, eggs are really expensive right now, right? Mm-hmm. So we chose not to do an egg salad recipe because a lot of people are avoiding having to buy eggs and hard boil them because of the expense for it. So what we did is we looked ahead at a calendar and said, okay, listen, this is what the next 10 weeks look like. What's coming up? So I included the root beer chicken wings so that people would have enough time to get those items and get it ready for their big Super Bowl party. Mm-hmm. We've got one that's going to come out this next Thursday that we're going to have a dessert in because we thought a dessert would be a great recipe leading into Valentine's Day. When we get to those big grilling holidays, 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, I'm going to definitely be the one writing those. And it's not just the straight up recipe. I add a little bit of kind of folksiness to it. So when I used my grandmother's mandarin orange jello, I made sure to include a story of like, this is what Christmas tastes like to me. You can keep your peppermint and those things. The flavor of mandarin orange jello is what Christmas and Thanksgiving and holidays at my grandmother's house reminds me. So it's been going a lot of fun. And of course, I've got a million recipes from my mom's recipe box that I can still go. And then it's also been nice because I want to include some original recipes. So the root beer chicken wings come from a recipe I found years ago, but I've tweaked and changed and made, the appropriate amount of alterations to make it uniquely mine. And so I'm looking forward to doing that going ahead too. The other thing I want to talk about real quick before we, end this episode is I need to apologize to the masses, and I need to personally apologize to Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field, because every movie I've gone to for the last 2 months has included an 80 for Brady trailer. And I've rolled my eyes and been like, this is the biggest piece of garbage. Like, why are they advertising this movie? This looks like it sucks. And the more that this trailer showed, the more people in the theater started reacting to be like, oh God, that looks like a Stitch. That looks like it's fun. And I was like, you are all morons. How dare you? So I went to the BFF screening of 80 for Brady this last week, which was an opportunity for you to bring your best friend. So I bought 2 tickets, and then my wife decided not to go. So it was just me. And I met a woman sitting next to me who was wearing a Vikings jersey and said, oh, your friend's not here? That's really sad. And made me feel, and I was like, okay. Now I'm not saying that this is a good movie, but I will tell you this. It has no right to be as fun as it actually was. And it spans 2 genres that I think will, when people get out there and see it, they'll be surprised by. Number one, this is not grumpy old men. This is not a bunch of people being old and the movie about them being old and like, we can still do this and have fun. This is a movie about sports fanaticism.
I mean, they're trying to hook up with Tom Brady, right?
Well, no. Like, I mean, that's what here's the thing. They made the trailers to look like this is just a bunch of hip hop old ladies. I mean, they might as well said someone was like, listen, I was in the hospital recently and the wedding singer was on. And you know that part with the rapping granny? Why don't we just make a whole movie about that? So the general premise of the movie is these 4 women, while Lily Tomlin had been going through chemo treatment, became sports fans of the New England Patriots and specifically Tom Brady. And so the movie takes place 16 years after Lily Tomlin's gone into remission, and they get together for every game and they watch it. This is just their ritual for friends being able to get together and catch up. Do you remember when you and I had a weird ritual where every Sunday night we went to a movie for a while and it didn't really even matter what the movie was, Tucker?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I believe that's how we saw Looney Tunes back in action.
Yeah.
And a couple other movies. Well, this is their ritual together as friends. And they're to a point in their lives where it's not about them being old. It's about them just enjoying their friendships and doing what they feel is fun and interesting. So they decide that it's Tom Brady's last year playing, probably, which we found out it wasn't, because the movie's set in 2017, and they decide they're going to go to the Super Bowl. So it's really a movie about 4 friends going to the Super Bowl, having never been to something like that before. Mm-hmm. And it there's a scene with Guy Fieri that made me laugh so hard that my little old lady friend told me I had to be quiet because I was ruining the movie for her by laughing. It's written in an interesting way. And again, it's not a bunch of old ladies. It is these 4 actresses just having fun on screen. You can tell how much fun this movie was to make. It shows through in this. And I think it's shown in a bunch of the marketing too. Sally Field is the only one who actually knows anything about football. And so even during the press tours for it, someone was a tight end, and Jane Fonda they're not talking about me. I haven't had that nipped and tucked yet. And Sally Field's no, they're talking about the position. And she goes, the position, for a butt? And they're no, it's a tight. And she gets frustrated. I'm I bet you this is what it was like on set. It's crazy. Patton Oswalt is in this movie, shows up out of nowhere.
Does he play Tom Brady?
No, he plays himself.
Okay.
Tom Brady plays Tom Brady, and you're like, oh, thank God they only put you in 3 minutes of this movie total. So for having
that was
your
my next
name be
question
about
was, does Tom Brady appear?
it would be like if the movie On Golden Pond was set in a desert. You'd be like,
imagine
no
like
pond.
I love the idea though that it was a completely unsanctioned usage of like Tom Brady's image.
My biggest groan was in the opening credits. It was produced by Tom Brady, and I went, "Oh God!"
Oh yeah, well, I mean that pretty much is probably just because he agreed to. You can have me, but I get producer credit.
They also like they don't go for a bunch of gratuitous sports cameos either, which I really appreciate. So it's not like they find themselves locked in an RV with Terry Bradshaw for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, there was the schmaltzy kind of moment in it, and luckily they dwell on it for about 10 seconds and then they move on and they don't ever bring it up again. It had the right amount of funniness without being mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I think of two things when I watch this movie. Number one, they don't make movies aimed at this demographic. These are women who are older than the Sex and the City generation, but don't want to be included in the Golden Girls generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're people who still probably work. They might even have a part-time job or be considering retirement. Sally Field's character is a college professor who's just recently gone on sabbatical. And so, they don't make them stupid in any way. Number two, this is a sports movie. It is a movie about sports and the love of sports and sports fanaticism. One of the best things that they did in this movie was they bookended a bunch of scenes with Rob Corddry and then a guy who's on SNL as these two like New England sports podcasters who have the thickest Boston accent you've ever heard. It's a wicked party over here. Tom Brady throwing it all the way down to the deep end. He goes, your mother's house is what I'm talking about. And these guys are nonstop hilarious. And you like, there's no introduction to them. There's no character. You know who they are immediately. Their podcast is called Pat's Nation. And they're like, let's go, Pats. Let's go. Come on. Don't be like those Philadelphia idiots. It was just a lot of fun. And so I would, Tucker, I would never recommend this movie to you, but, and it's because, I feel like I know a little bit about like your temperament and style, but like your dad is going to love this movie.
Oh,
your mom would probably also really like this movie.
I wouldn't be surprised. I finally saw Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah. Took you forever.
Night. What's that?
Took you forever.
It did. Like I have been way behind on stuff. So I really haven't been watching anything for a long time. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do 80 for Brady next.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a horrible decision. And here's the thing. If you watch it and you haven't had any laughs by the time they get to the hot wing eating contest, you don't need to watch it anymore. Trust me. It's not going to get better from there. That should be your point of no return is the hot wing eating contest.
Sounds good.
Okay, listen, I gotta go because I'm gonna go see Knock at the Cabin, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, which I have already prejudged as this movie's gonna be garbage. So I hope I don't have to enter the next episode of JJ Meets World with M. Night. I owe you an apology, but I'm pretty sure that won't happen. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. The thing is that when I went to 80 for Brady the first time, I was high on mushrooms, but not the kind that get you high. I literally was sitting on a couple of mushrooms because I had come straight from the grocery store.